Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and you know how much I love low-cost PCs. We've got a decent gaming machine to take a look at today from CYBERPOWERPC. This is called their Gamer Xtreme VR, and it costs $720 with an AMD RX 480 graphics processor. We'll be putting it through its paces and taking it apart here in a second. This is a good PC for people that want to get into gaming if they don't really want to spend all that much but want to play AAA PC titles. It also might be good for video editors and maybe some light CAD work also, because it is a pretty powerful computer for not a lot of money, and it's very upgradable too. Now, I do want to mention, in the interest of full disclosure, this came in free of charge through the Amazon Vine program. However, all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this review, and no one is reviewing this content before it is posted. All right, so let's take a look at the inside of the computer and go through all of its specifications. This is a pre-built PC. You could probably source all these components yourself and build your own, but I don't think you'll be able to really do it for about the price that this one costs with the same components. What CyberPower is doing here is buying this stuff in bulk and getting a better price, and you could probably build something for around this price, but you also have to factor in the cost of the Windows license. So this is probably going to be very competitive with a build your own. Really nicely laid out here. They got all the wires hidden. There's a lot of cooling on this thing. So you've got two fans in the front here, another one over here. The power supply, which is a 600-watt power supply, of course has its own cooling. It's got a stock cooler on the Intel processor here also, so it'll keep itself very cool, but it's very noisy as a result of that. Inside, you got that RX 480 GPU from AMD. You have two 4GB RAM modules here in dual channel configuration. That gives you 8GB of RAM total. You have an Intel i5, that's an i5 7400, a 3 GHz quad-core CPU, so very well spec'd out here and performs very nicely, as you'll see in a minute. It also has an optical drive, a DVD burner that's over here, and you also have a 1 TB hard drive that is up here, and you can add additional storage to it if you wish. There's a bunch of SATA connectors available for you on the motherboard. Two PCI slots on the motherboard also, but you can't add a second GPU because there is only one X16 slot that this one occupies, but you could always get a new motherboard down the road and put it into this thing. This is a very standard case, a very sturdy case actually, all metal. It really looks pretty nice too. It doesn't glow as much as they kind of indicate in their product specifications on Amazon, but all the fans have red LEDs in there, and you will see some red light emanating out from it while you're using it in the dark. And of course, you've got a bunch of connectors on the case. You've got your USB 3.0 connectors on the front here, along with audio in and out and the power and reset switch. On the back, on the motherboard, you've got a USB Type-C connector, but this is not Thunderbolt, and this is the slower 5 gigabits per second USB 3.1 Gen 1 speed on this one. Don't expect a lot on a cheap PC. Got your audio in and out over here as well. USB 3.0 right here, another two USB 3.0 ports there. Gigabit Ethernet, a pair of USB 2.0 connectors for hooking up keyboards and mice and that sort of thing. You also have some legacy connectors too, so if you've got an old PS2 mouse and keyboard that you just have to keep using, you can plug them right in to the device here. DVI and HDMI are on the motherboard, but this is for the slower Intel graphics. You'll want to connect up your display to the GPU here, and you've got an HDMI out along with 3 DisplayPort connectors. They also, surprisingly, included a keyboard and mouse in the box, and they call these gaming keyboards and mice, but they're actually just low-cost devices that look like gaming keyboards and mice, but they're nicer than what you typically see on a sub $1,000 PC. But these are not mechanical keys. It's pretty plasticky feeling. It's not the highest quality, but again, I have found the keyboard on this one to be a little better than what you might get on a Dell or something like that. So as a pack-in, it's passable, especially given the price point. The mouse here has a bunch of buttons on it, but again, not going to blow you away in its gaming performance. But again, you're spending $720 for the full package, and it's nice that they do at least include the keyboard and mouse as part of the price. And you also get a TP-Link wireless adapter inside as well for getting it on your Wi-Fi network if you don't want to use the Ethernet. So that is the entire system layout. It's rather large. So I'm going to get this thing off the desk. We're going to boot it up, and we'll see how it performs. All right, so let's kick things off with Grand Theft Auto 5. I'm going to pop into the graphics settings here. I forgot to mention earlier, the video card has 4 gigabytes of video RAM, and I'll step through all the settings that I have configured on the game here. This is what I set it at to get us above 60 frames per second second consistently. I did try to use the AMD Gaming Evolved application, which is a means of trying to automate the settings like you would be able to do on a NVIDIA card with their GeForce experience, and I found it didn't work all that well for me. So this was something that took a little bit more time to configure than I've seen on the NVIDIA side of things, but I am getting consistent frame rates above 60 frames per second. On the low end, I'm seeing about 65 or so, and at the high end, about 80, depending on what's going on in the scene here with this game. So this is a game that's very demanding on both the CPU and the GPU. The performance does vary widely as you're moving about the world here, but with some pretty decent image quality, we're getting some decent frame rates, which is really good. It's better than console. It's faster than console at 60 frames per second or more, and I think it's a pretty good experience for the money here, so not too bad. Let's take a look at something else. All right, so let's take a look now at the new version of Doom. You can see what I have here for settings at 1080p. I was able to turn them up pretty decently here. I'll back out to the game once more, and we're well above 60 frames per second most of the time, sometimes getting as high as 100 frames per second when we get into scenes that aren't all that demanding on the hardware here. So really good performance here. This is a fast game to begin with. A ton of fun. I've been having a lot of fun testing PCs with this lately, and as you can see here, a really good experience, probably better than a console experience, and better image quality too. So good stuff on Doom. Let's take a look at one more game. And here we have Street Fighter V here running at a full solid 60 frames per second at 1080p. So another one that runs quite nicely on this platform. And I think, again, if you're sticking to 1080p, a lot of these AAA titles should look really decent, better than console, and perform pretty decently too. And I really like seeing this at a price point well below $1,000. So you've seen how it does with real-life games. Let's take a look at some benchmarking scores now. I like to run a lot of the 3D mark tests on my PC reviews. We're going to start off with Time Spy, which is a DirectX 12 test, and we got a score there of 2,750. And if you look at that compared to the i3 computer that we built a little while ago with a 1050 Ti that was slightly overclocked, you can see this really is in line pretty well with it when you look at its graphics scores. The CPU will be a little faster because this is an i5 versus the i3 that we had on that test machine, but I think that's where it lines up, about where the 1050 Ti will be on the NVIDIA side if you had it plugged into the same motherboard. And if you're looking at this as perhaps an entry point for virtual reality, it will support the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive. I ran the Steam VR benchmark, and it is in the ready category, which means that it will be able to sustain the 90 frames per second that both of the current VR platforms require. So I think you'll have a good experience with it, with all the VR stuff that's out there. It will get obsoleted a little faster perhaps as VR evolves, because again, it is lower end hardware. It's at the lower end of the scale as far as the ready is concerned, but anything that's out right now in 2017 I think will do quite well on this platform, and a great way to get your feet wet with VR without having to buy a really expensive rig to do it. And on the 3D Mark stress test, which measures whether or not temperature becomes an issue the more the computer is placed under load, we got a passing score of 99.3%, which means that there wasn't any real noticeable degradation in performance the hotter it got. So it was able to really get that heat moved out of that case pretty efficiently. And it's no surprise, there's really good airflow in there. It's got a lot of fans on it also. And unfortunately, that's its really only fault, is the amount of fan noise that I'm hearing out of this. It's got like a low hum that you'll hear all the time. It's not a wind tunnel. It doesn't really get louder, but it's always there even when you're just idling at the Windows desktop. So if you are someone who's susceptible to annoyances by fan noise, this will certainly be something that might annoy you. And on mine, I think just might be something wrong with the GPU fan. I'm hearing a bit of a whistling coming out of that GPU fan on there. So not a quiet PC by any stretch, but it is a very good value. In fact, I think you would be hard pressed to build something with all of these components for the same price. And when you factor in the Windows license, you're probably easily $100 over the $720 price point that they're selling this at. So really competitively priced, pre-built PC, really nice case. You could work on it later. So if you are maybe thinking about becoming a PC tinkerer, this might be a good place to start, because you've got something fully assembled, and over time, as you want to add a new GPU or swap out drives, you can really start wrenching on it if you want, and really get a good entry point from here with a case that I think will last a good long time. It's got a decent power supply at 600 watts as well, so it will allow for more powerful GPUs down the road too. So good stuff overall. And if you're looking for a cheap gaming PC, I see no problem recommending this one. This is Lon.TV, and thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.